Work has been very intense from the onset. These missions are very robust and high speed. You have to be mentally prepared going into that. It's not like the workplace setting that you have a routine and you have some time management to follow and you can really organize yourself. The artistry of performing in these missions is coming in and being able to react promptly and still deliver whatever the expectation is. So it's always intense and you have to be in gear for that. I put myself in the zone of survival, physiologically and mentally. You have to do this. There is a higher objective here, and this is a public service, community service, but for me it's personal. New Orleans is home, so I know that I had to prepare my hands for battle when I'm coming here, to have the physical stamina, have the mental endurance for what I'm going to be looking at, and that in itself creates a compression. We need to perform, we need to be able to take care of the people. So whatever my role is, I know I have to stand up to the demands that's put up on me.
So you're from New Orleans. Tell me about your experience prior to the storm happening. I hear that you have a little story to tell.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to do that. I heard that there was a storm. I mean, it was being publicly broadcast. Get prepared, there could be a storm, brewing, and it's going to hit the Gulf Coast. But my mother was scheduled for a surgery, and I had been given permission to come down on that afternoon. I was on leave that Friday and accompany her to surgery. When I sat through the surgery with her, and she was released due to some special circumstances at the hospital. And then within less than an 18-hour notice, the storm picked up from a Category 1 to Category 3. With the expectations it would be a 4 when it landed, and it was coming to New Orleans. There was no time because my mother had had a life-saving surgery, and she was bedbound, immobile, just pretty much incapacitated in recovery and very fragile. Her health was critical, but she had to leave the hospital. There was no time for an evacuation plan. So at that time, all I could do was prepare for the worst. Do we have any food? How much food do we have? Do we have water? And how can I keep her protected physically? And what will I be able to do should she become, worse, unable to breathe or have any type of other medical emergency? And that got my mind running. I know that we were going to get hit. I mean, from the time that the news announced by 3 o'clock it was going to hit New Orleans, by 7 the forecast was very accurate. By 7 p.m. I saw the actual storm just sitting on Interstate 10, which is clear view from her window on her St. Charles Avenue condominium. And we watched it and we watched it, and the lights went out by 8 p.m. and her condominium got really hot, up to 100 degrees, and I watched her sweat and begin to get short of breath and labor. And I had a cell phone, but I couldn't reach any doctors. The hospitals had already started to shut down, was operating on generators and only taking care of patients who was in critical condition, maybe on ventilators. So I was there with her, and I had to figure out, how do I keep her from slipping away? And that was the hardest part. And I started to see debris flying everywhere. There were, oh my God, scrap metal hitting the window, and I'm seeing the roof peel off. I'm seeing this for hours. She can't sleep. I have to, mobilize her for her basic necessities, whatever that is included, And it was really hard, but I couldn't break down. I hadn't even been to sleep between the discharge that same day and when the hurricane hit. And my mom is a little bit smaller than me in stature, so she was heavy. So it was like doubling my body weight. I just had to hold on to her, and she was tearful, and she was scared, and she was weak. She had just been released after 5 days of, turmoil of life-saving surgery. And so I cuddled her, and I did a lot of praying. And I held on to her until the storm subsided. About 7 a.m. was when we stopped hearing rain and wind, and I saw it, go away. I tried to call 911 and it was deactivated. So I decided I have to go out there. Debris or whatever the conditions are, I got to get an ambulance, because by then I was taking her blood pressure and it was extremely low, and she had started to show signs of declination to the point maybe I wouldn't have been able to keep her alive. I got on foot and I saw some police officers. I saw a police unit at the gas station stopping the riot, and I pleaded with them, but I mean, I was sweating and I was tired, but I had no thought for my physical state or appearance. I just know I needed to take care of my mom. The elevator was out. I went down 6 flights of concrete stairs, and I went to them and I pleaded. I said, hey, my mother's in there. She had surgery and she looked like she's not doing well. You know, her blood pressure is dropping. She's diabetic. Her sugar's really low. Her eyes is dilating a little bit. Can I get an ambulance? And they say, we will. We're the only ones who can radio back and forth. We're sorry that there are no emergency services available. We're told right now we have over 3,000 or 4,000 elderly people that are trapped, that need help getting out, live alone, or have someone there who cannot move them or mobilize with them. And I was devastated. Well, they showed up 2.5 hours later, and by then, you know, my mom started to, her features were changing, her lips was getting a little blue, she couldn't breathe, and I called my sister and I said, we got to carry her out of here. I need some help. But she lived 3.5 miles away. She said, I can't make it. There were neighbors downstairs. There were elderly people, because my mother lived in a building with condominiums for the elderly and for the disabled. And I kind of had to step over a lot of people who have been carried out of their apartments, you know, could not breathe and was hot, overheated. Some was going into shock. I mean, this was a building full of sick people more than it was people in duress because it was hot or a storm. And I stepped over many of them and I asked a young man, can you go upstairs and help me? My mom's up there too, and she's just as worse as them, but I have a car and I'll get her out. And he said, sure. And I went up and I kind of threw her over my shoulders and I grabbed her and I brought her downstairs, and he stood in front of us. That way, if I couldn't hold her weight, we would fall on him and he would hit the ground and the cement and we wouldn't. So that was that experience, and I put her in my car, and I had some water in my car. Of course, it was hot, and I put towels on her, and I started to contact my Mobile EOC. I said, I don't have a phone anymore. I don't have anything. Could you tell me if the highway is open? What can I do? And they say, it looks like I-10 is open up to Mobile, but do you really need to leave? And I say, yeah, my mom is dying. And they say, yeah, okay, Nicole, do what you have to do, but be careful. And I put her in a car, and I got stopped. There was a barricade to the I-10, and the police said, you can't go up there. There's scrap metal everywhere. The whole city is torn up. You know, the hurricane just crushed everything. And he's like, if we let you go up there and parts of it is damaged or, you know, compromised, you could die. And I'm like, well, if you don't let me go, she's gonna die. And I pulled out my CAT card and I said, hey, look, I work for the Army Corps of Engineers. I work under these type of conditions after storms. I help, you know, with the debris pickup and everything. I know how to drive on these roads. I'll get through. I'll look for live wires, but please don't let my mom die. And I was shaking, and the police say, okay, we'll let you go, but we can't guarantee you'll get any further. At every stop, we'll try to radio and we'll try to get you out. And that's just what I had to do. She just, you know, more and more was just declining, and I got to Mississippi and I got her in the hospital and they gave her oxygen outside, but they couldn't treat her. They said, we have COVID patients all in the hospital. We can't do anything for her. We'll give her oxygen. You can get her to Mobile. So each state I stopped and I got her help and I got her oxygen. And then I got her to Florida where I live, and she was treated in Sacred Heart Hospital where they saved my mom's life.
How's she doing now?
She's recovering. She had a bit of a setback from the days of being displaced and going into, you know, just those uncared moments. It set her back a little bit. They had to build her heart back up, build her strength, you know, back up to recover from what she already had been through. You know, she was on the slow roll to healing, and she's doing a lot better, but mentally it was like a flashback for her because she lived through Katrina. Obviously, she was in New Orleans and she was trapped in a home for Katrina, so she was kind of like, I would say, post-traumatized. You know, it's almost like she was reliving that, like, am I ever going to get to go home? You know, how's the condition of the buildings? She saw one side of the roof collapse, and how's the condition of the building? She worried about so many things, but she's doing well now. It was a week and a half later. It was about a week. September the 8th, I saw the announcement that they would start a tasker and they needed volunteers. And I was still on the surge from what I had seen in New Orleans. I was obviously back in Florida where I couldn't help, because if there was a way to volunteer even outside of the Corps, I wanted to come back to the city. After what I saw my mom going through, and she had me, I knew that there were thousands out there in likeness in her situation that hadn't even gotten reached, or nobody had even gotten to them yet, you know. So my mind was, you know, life-saving assistance, getting people, you know, to where they need to be, whatever it is. I'm going to go down there and volunteer and help my city. It's surreal, and it will not allow me to abate the urgency that I have to help everyone that calls about their roof, or if they just want to, you know, spend a few moments talking about what they went through, if they need redirection for other agencies that give assistance outside of Blue Roof. My urgency to help will not be abated until we have exhausted our time down here on the ground and every client have been reached and given an opportunity to receive a repair.
Is there anything else that you want to add?
Yes, natural disasters and the work that we do afterwards, the recovery efforts. The Corps of Engineers is known mostly for recovery, more than levees and more than military constructions. We are the emblem of recovery from natural disaster. We are the fabric of healing. We come in and everyone is excited and waiting with a bated breath to see us, because they know that we're going to help them on the road to rebuilding. We're going to do something, put a Band-Aid somewhere. And I am so honored to work for the Army Corps of Engineers and given these opportunities if it wasn't my family, because it reaches so far into the life of people who have been impacted in ways we don't know until we fill one of these roles in these operations. People's lives, the devastation ricocheted to financial offset, loss of jobs, homes, broken and displaced families. There is a lot of trauma involved in surviving a natural disaster. So I am so honored for the Corps to entrust me in any duty to help assist with people's lives in the recovery after a natural disaster. I want to thank the Corps for letting me do this and for all that we take on for these recovery operations and emergency operations.